The American Civil War, a conflict that claimed more lives than any other war in United States history. Over 620,000 Americans, North and South, would perish in a struggle that reshaped the nation forever. But what truly pushed a young country barely 80 years old into a devastating internal war? Was it slavery, economic differences, political failures, or something far deeper, something woven into the very fabric of America from the start? In this documentary, we break down the real causes behind the Civil War, the clash of two different worlds, two different systems, and two entirely different visions of America's future. To understand the Civil War, we must begin with slavery, because it was the central driving force of the entire conflict. In the early 1800s, the United States was not one unified nation, but a land of contrasts. The North was rapidly industrializing. Factories, railroads, and immigrant labor created a society that believed progress meant moving away from slavery. But the South lived in a different world. Its wealth, its culture, and its political power were built on massive agricultural plantations, and those plantations were powered almost entirely by enslaved African Americans. Cotton was the South's white gold, and behind every bale of cotton lay the forced labor of millions of enslaved people. The moral divide was obvious. The North increasingly viewed slavery as inhumane, outdated, and morally unacceptable. The South, however, feared that without slavery, its entire economic system would collapse. Two economies, two ideologies, and two Americas growing further apart by the year. Beyond morality, North and South clashed economically. The North supported high tariffs, taxes on imported goods to protect its young industries from European competition. The South hated tariffs. It relied heavily on exporting cotton to Britain and France. Higher taxes meant higher costs and less profit. Where the North wanted industrial expansion, the South wanted agricultural freedom. Where the North saw progress, the South saw interference. Every debate in Congress, every law, every negotiation turned into a fight over which vision would shape the future of the United States. These economic rivalries didn't exist alone. They were tightly connected to and fueled by the issue of slavery. At the heart of the political conflict lay one explosive question: who held the real power, the federal government or the individual states? Southern leaders argued that states had the right to decide their own laws, including whether to allow or expand slavery. To them, any attempt by Washington to restrict slavery was a threat to their sovereignty. The North, meanwhile, believed that the federal government had the responsibility to limit the spread of slavery and maintain national unity. This wasn't just a debate, it was a constitutional crisis. It tested the very definition of the United States. Was America a group of independent states voluntarily working together, or was it one unified country with a central authority? As both sides held firm, compromise became increasingly impossible. Decades of conflict eventually erupted into a series of dramatic events, each one pushing the nation closer to war. 1. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. This law allowed new territories to vote on slavery. It sounded democratic, but instead unleashed chaos. Pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers flooded into Kansas, leading to Bleeding Kansas, a period of violent clashes, burned towns, and political terror. It proved one thing: Americans were now willing to shed blood over slavery. 2. The Dred Scott decision of 1857. The Supreme Court ruled that African Americans, enslaved or free, were not citizens and had no rights the government must respect. The North was outraged. The South celebrated. The ruling widened the divide and convinced many Northerners that the slave power controlled the government. 3. John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. A radical abolitionist named John Brown attempted to spark a slave uprising by seizing a federal arsenal. The raid failed, but the South panicked. If one man could cause such chaos, what might come next? To the North, Brown became a symbol of resistance to slavery. To the South, he was proof that their way of life was under attack. 4. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860. Lincoln won the presidency without carrying a single Southern state. He didn't promise to abolish slavery where it existed, but he opposed its expansion. For the South, that was enough. Within weeks, Southern states began seceding, declaring that they were leaving the Union altogether. By early January 1861, 11 states had broken away and formed the Confederate States of America. The nation was now split in two. The final spark came at Fort Sumner, a federal fort in Charleston Harbor. Southern forces demanded its surrender. Lincoln refused. On April 12, 1861, Confederate cannons opened fire. For 34 hours, smoke and flames filled the sky. And just like that, the United States was at war with itself. This was no longer about laws or elections or political speeches. It was about the future of America as a nation. The Civil War wasn't caused by just one issue. It was the result of a long, painful clash between slavery, economics, politics, and identity. But at the very center, undeniably, was slavery. The war that followed would destroy cities, tear families apart, and redefine what it meant to be American. And from that destruction, a new nation would emerge, one where slavery was abolished and where the idea of a united United States truly began. Understanding these causes isn't just learning history. It's understanding the struggles, the contradictions, and the choices that built the America we know today.